Hey folks, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another review. And I've reviewed all of the Exorcist films in the past. They're on my channel. If I remember, I'll put my link to the actual film Exorcist 3, which I love the Exorcist 3. I love this movie. It's one of my favorite horror films of the 1990s. I did like a list of my favorite horror films of the 90s and I put it like in my top 20. I thought it was very atmospheric, creepy. George C. Scott is a powerhouse actor. Loved him in this and the original, The Changeling from 1980. Brad Dourif is great. Jason Miller. I actually do like the exorcism at the end. I know a lot of people don't. I do. I thought the score was very creepy, like sound effects and noise and textures of the sound. A lot of creepy images. I mean, the kill with the shears is really memorable. The image where you see like a statue with the Joker face, which is supposed to be the Joker face, like Joker from Batman. That was a lot of cool stuff. The woman running around upside down, and George C. Scott doesn't notice, and the weird dream scene with like Samuel Jackson, which isn't his voice, but it's him and Fabio and Patrick Ewing, and and then some really funny dialogue, like the if you've seen the film, the dialogue about the carp and Ed Flanders as the other priest, who's a friend of George C. Scott. He was really good. I like the story of the film. I really enjoy it. And I did give a special thank you to Scott. I did an unpackaging video which showed some stuff he had sent me, including this. And that's what this is, a review of the collector's edition Blu-ray of The Exorcist 3 by Scream Factory. Scott, if you're watching, thank you so much. He didn't have to do that, but at the same time, I was greedy enough to say yes. And what can I say? I'm greedy. I'm greedy for anything. I'm greedy for everything. So I am. At least I admit it, though. Some people don't and think they're saints. I'm not a saint. I'm not perfect, and I'm never going to be. So at least I admit I'm not a saint. People are like, hey, you say stuff so people can buy you. I'm like, yeah, I wish. I'm just get lucky on that. But yeah, I wish. I wish I had that power of mind control. I wish I did. Hell, I'll take it most of the time. But anyway, because people do get pissed that I say, oh, I want to get this in my collection. Then someone was like, oh, you're saying this so someone will buy it for you. And I'm like, oh, okay. Then I should say more if that's the case, if I have that power. Is that what happens? Okay, I should say that even more often. I should say that like 10 times a video. Whatever the hell's on my Amazon wish list. I need to get, I don't know what the hell is. I don't have it up. But I need to, what was it? Oh, Razorbat, Blu-ray from Umbrella. I need that now. Just buy it for me. Please, someone out there, buy it for me now. I'll say it 10 more times. Yeah, have fun with it. But in all seriousness, Exorcist 3, Collector's Edition, I agree with this. The True Exorcist sequel, Arrow in the Head. This is actually my favorite. Like I said in the review, I always loved this movie out of all the films, including the first one. But I know it's like 4 minutes in. I haven't gone to the Blu-ray itself. The cover, I don't know. Brad Dourif looks a little bit weird. Maybe it's the purple kind of tint to it. By the way, I didn't mention when I did the theme review, I didn't mention that there is a little bit of a blue tint to certain scenes on John Carver's The Thing by Scream Factory. I didn't mention that because I'm watching. I was just really like, wow, this looks really good and sharp. And then someone mentioned it to me. And I'm like, oh shit, yeah, okay, yeah. I just didn't notice it because I liked it. I'm like, this looks cool. But yeah, it has a little bit of like a blue tint. And I'm not sure if they did it with this. Maybe a teeny bit. I know on some forums they mention how there's a little bit of a difference in picture quality, but I liked it. It's not like the Dog Soldiers, which I disliked it. But getting back to the cover, I mean, it shows certain images from the film, so it's all right. But so it's just Brad Dourif just looks weird. I don't know what it is. He just looks weird. He looks like the Joker. Honestly, if you put a little bit more white makeup, he looks like the Joker. Although Brad Dourif could play a good Joker now that I think about it. But of course, the flip side is this, which I love. This is simple but yet very effective. Of course, directed by William Peter Blatty, who wrote the novel The Exorcist and wrote Legion, which is based on, and all the issues behind the studio wanting things changed. For example, when this was, and I'm going to get to the features, but this goes into the big feature, which is the director's cut, as well as you have the theatrical cut and you have the director's cut, simply titled Legion. Pretty much the film was done, and the studio Morgan Creek said, "Well, can you have an exorcism in this?" And not only that, but because the whole way, how the film was made, the director of the first film, William Friedkin, and William Peter Blatty were going to do a sequel to The Exorcist after Exorcist 2. Well, William Friedkin sort of lost interest. Then there was one time a talk of John Carpenter Exorcist film. That would have been interesting. But I think Carpenter even says that it really felt like William Peter Blatty wanted to direct it himself, which is true. So Carpenter kind of moved away from it. Understandable. And then when Peter Blatty directed it, and the first time he directed it, Brad Dourif was in all the scenes. There was no Jason Miller, who plays the character of Father Terrace, Damien Terrace. It was all Brad Dourif, 100%. There was no Jason Miller. I think at the time, Jason Miller, who's unfortunately no longer with us, but he was an alcoholic. There was a term named wet brain, where they can't remember dialogue and such, so they thought, well, Jason Miller can't do it. Let Brad Dourif, let's get someone new. So Brad Dourif played the priest, Damien Karras, and in the Legion cut, there are certain pictures where you see Brad Dourif as a priest on these pictures. So he was Damien Karras. And it was just strictly Damien Karras. You would see Damien Karras, only Brad Dourif played Damien Karras instead of the Gemini killer. And it was all Brad Dourif and George C. Scott. And the ending was George C. Scott goes up, shoots him. That's it. And they showed it and they thought, well, this is a little bit limp, a little bit bleh. We need some punch to the ending. We want Jason Miller to have more of a connection to the first film. And that's what happened. Now, for years, people thought they would never get a director's cut. They finally did. And this director's cut is from VHS tapes. So it'll be like the Blu-ray, and then it'll cut to a VHS copy of the film. The best they can do, which that doesn't bother me. Hell, if there was more light, there's a poster of Hard Target. I've made tons of fan edits where I've taken the work print of Hard Target and the theatrical cut or the Blu-ray cut, and I put them together for my own cut. So I'm fine. The original My Bloody Valentine. I mean, I wish that was smoothed out more, but I can still watch and be fine with it. If there is no other way to do it, okay, I can understand that. But they mention how maybe there were just certain scenes that could not be found. I don't know what those scenes are. I know one is a shot that William Peter Blatty just didn't want in because it was too grisly. You see a picture of a priest who's holding a head in his lap after it's been cut off. And the studio didn't cut that. William Peter Blatty did because he wanted things more suggested, not gory. which is too bad because I would love to have seen that in the flick. But if I base it on this director's cut alone, I don't know what they couldn't have find to put in there. I'm basing it on this director's cut called Legion. I'm basing it on that. Not what may have been filmed and lost through time. I don't know the 100% details. And honestly, you could probably find it on the trivia on IMDb page or the Wikipedia. And I don't need to read that verbatim because you guys can do that yourself. I don't mean that in a rude way. I mean, you just type in Exorcist 3 Wikipedia, Exorcist 3 trivia IMDb, either way, and you'll find it. If I base it on this, the only difference between the two, there's a few tiny moments of extra dialogue put in, which honestly I looked at and I go, I can understand why that was cut out. One bit where at the end of the theatrical cut you see George C. Scott and his partner at the grave of Father Karras. That was a scene from earlier where they're digging up the body and they realize that there's a different body there. And then at one point there's a little bit of extra dialogue of another priest that's missing from long ago, and well, he was taller, or maybe that's his body in there. I can understand why that was cut out. It wasn't, to me, wasn't needed. Some extra shots of a picture of Brad Dourif as Damien Karras, like on a wall. Anytime George C. Scott talks with Brad Dourif, it's completely Brad Dourif. And the thing is, it's in a different set, because when they had to do the exorcism sequence, they had to make a new set, and Brad Dourif had to redo his entire performance. So when you see his performance in the theatrical cut, that was all stuff he had to redo. He redid everything. Every scene he's in, he had to redo for that new set, because that was a set. Because the old and the original cut Legion is this cell with brick walls behind him. While this new set is, here's Jason Miller, then here's Brad Dourif redoing his performance. I know Brad Dourif prefers the original cut. A lot of people prefer the original cut. I'll say right here, I prefer the theatrical cut. I really do. The one thing is the priest coming in at the end, played by Nicole Williamson, would have been nice if it was smoothed in easier, but that's because it wasn't planned. Honestly, I wish William Peter Blatty had planned that from the beginning so that it could have been eased in smoother. But I'll get more to that. I'll go back to Legion. Other than little additions of dialogue, the beginning of the film is in black and white. I don't think it's like that in the theatrical cut. I think it's in color, but the beginning of this is in black and white. Like Brad Dourif. Honestly, I think Brad Dourif's performance was better in the theatrical cut. It was nice to see Brad Dourif do all the dialogue instead of Brad Dourif and Jason Miller. On the flip side, I like Jason Miller in the theatrical cut, and I like Brad Dourif. And the thing is, Brad Dourif's performance in the theatrical, it felt more aggressive, more angry, more yelling, more intensity. Here, a lot of his performance in Legion is more laid back and more just talking. And I prefer the more aggressive performance. And plus, I thought the story worked more interesting when it was Jason Miller than the Gemini Killer is Brad Dourif. I liked that more in the theatrical cut. Like Brad Dourif, it was cool. I'm a big fan of Brad Dourif. It was nice to see his whole performance. That he had to redo the theatrical, but that was honestly it was interesting to watch, but it could have easily been on a deleted scene on the bonus features of the theatrical. Because other than that, the ending is when the nurse who's been possessed, well, not nurse, but she's in a nurse's uniform, ready to kill George C. Scott's daughter, doesn't. The woman possessed stops not because of the priest, because there's no priest in that cut, because I guess Damien sort of stopped her. He just walks into the room. Brad Dourif says, "Oh, we'll get her another time." George C. Scott says, "Forgive me," shoots him, puts a gun to his head, shoots him, cuts away. It's the sun either rising or setting, I forget. End credits. I don't know if there was more to the ending, because it says they shot the movie and then they showed it. I don't know what more there was to the ending, because it was supposed to be a very simple ending. Because there was no exorcism or anything like that. It was supposed to be very simple. And I'm like, I can understand why the studio would watch that and they go, what? Like, that's. It would be. It's a limp ending. Again, if there's stuff that was filmed and they couldn't find, I'm sorry, I can't judge it by stuff I can't see. I can only judge it from this director's cut. And when I watch the director's cut, the ending is limp as fuck. It is lame as hell. It is anticlimactic. And I prefer the bells and whistles, effects laden, theatrical cut ending. Even though the priest could have been, should have been smoothed in, but it's kind of hard to do that when it wasn't part of the original shoot. I watched it. I was not impressed by the Legion cut. I'm like, not since the producer's cut of Halloween 6. And even that's an overrated cut. The Legion cut is an overrated cut. Again, I know they could only do what they could. The only interest was seeing the Brad Dourif stuff that he originally did. But it was more of a laid back performance. And honestly, I don't think it was as good as the one in the theatrical cut, where it was more aggressive and more just intense. And when I watch these movies, I will watch the theatrical cut. That is my preferred cut. As for the rest of the stuff, there's a new 2K stand of the theatrical cut. There's like 40 minutes worth of vintage interviews from back in the day, which feature William Peter Blatty, George C. Scott, Jason Miller, Ed Flanders, Grandel Bush, who was George C. Scott's partner. That was cool. Wow, they got 40 minutes worth of stuff from back in the day. A little 5-minute deleted scene, alternate tape blooper scene. It was like a birthday party that was deleted, and 2 or 3 other things. A trailer, TV spots, photo gallery, disc 2, that's the Legion cut. You have an audio interview that plays over with William Peter Blatty, which I thought was interesting. He tells a bit about making of the first film, the novel, writing Legion, and his thoughts on faith. And I thought it was an interesting audio interview. A 20-25 minute featurette called A Wonderful Time interviews with producer Carter DeHaven, the actress who got killed by the shears, some of the other Brad Dourif, which is really funny when he talks about Exorcist 2 and how much of a piece of shit it was. And I'm like, I agree, Exorcist 2 is that. So that was pretty funny. Signs of the Gemini interview with Brad Dourif, which he tells about how he got the job, working with William Peter Blatty. He loved working with George C. Scott, doing the scenes originally, and that Jason Miller couldn't do it because of his alcoholism, and then afterward the reshoots, and he felt that the reshoots hurt the film. I'm sorry, Brad, I disagree. I think it's a much better film in the theatrical cut. I think he prefers his performance in the original cut, and I disagree with that. I prefer his performance in the original cut. He prefers it. I prefer the theatrical cut performance, but that's just me. But it was a good interview with Brad Dourif. I was hoping it was going to be one of those interviews Kind of like what they did with Peter Jason on Village of the Damned, where they went through like his whole career. I think that would have been cool for Brad Dourif to go through a lot of his career because he's done so much stuff. Body Parts, Graveyard Shift, uh, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Fatal Beauty, worked with Tom Holland, then led to Child's Play, and like I said, Graveyard Shift, Body Parts, Child's Play sequels, even Spontaneous Combustion. I would hear his interview over that. How was it working with Toby Hooper? Did something happen during the making of the film or the edit that fucked the movie up? Or was Toby high? Did someone else come in and direct Spontaneous Combustion? Maybe Steven Spielberg's cousin went in and filmed that instead of Toby? But it's a good interview with Brad Dourif. Interview with production designer. Again, about the look of the film. That's about 10-15 minutes. Music for Pet Cell, interview with composer Barry Dvorak, which is about 15 minutes, about how at first William Peter Blatty wanted him for the first film. William freaking didn't want that. And then getting the job here, and it seems like the producer who's interviewed didn't really want the guy. At least that's what he sounds like, and look by the look on his face. And the guy composer told us about doing a score that's not orchestral and how hard it was. All This Bleeding, a look at the additional shoot and special effects, which tells us about some of the effects guys and I think the production designer is, or production manager, and just how hard it was. No one had fun during it. It was tough. You could tell by them it was tough. But it seems like a lot of people were pretty proud of the film, which is cool. It was just cool to see features for the flick. I did not have the film on Blu-ray. I had it on DVD, so it's nice to have the film on Blu-ray. And I was curious to see the Legion cut. Granted, it didn't impress me, but it was nice to see the Brad Dourif scenes, how they originally were. Being a fan of Brad Dourif, that was cool. Audio interview with William Peter Blatty, I thought was interesting. And overall, I still really enjoy the Blu-ray. I mean, yeah, the Legion cut did not impress me. I'm sorry. People didn't get pissed. I prefer the theatrical cut. That's just my opinion. But either way, I'm still glad to have this. Thank you so much, Scott. It was a very nice gift. That's my thoughts on the Blu-ray of The Exorcist 3. Good interviews. It has two cuts of the film. I watched the film. It looked good on Blu-ray to me. A lot of stuff about the other day. I did like 40 minutes worth of interviews from people from back in the day. I know at the time they didn't want to call it Exorcist 3, so there was talks of calling it The Exorcist 1990, which I don't know about that title. But yeah, really enjoy. Love the film. Good Blu-ray. Thanks for watching. Take care, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.